Man.
You too, as always, bro.
Yeah, man.
All right. What is this? All right, guys, we are live. So we're here today with the man of the hour, Chris Craddock, who's been a good friend of mine of the industry. Oh, I'm Eric Perez, by the way, but we'll keep moving. And we're going to talk about distressed sellers. And actually, me and Chris has spoken about this for probably for the last year on and off when he came to Orlando. I think it was like last year. And Chris is very smart guy in a lot of realms, and he also kind of is an expert in this niche and taught me a lot. So I'm happy to have you on today so you can teach the rest of the Realty.com family on how you do what you do and how do you evolve outside of the typical real estate transaction and look on servicing distressed individuals, which isn't our forte because they're usually not in the MLS. So let's get started, brother. How are you, first of all?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I'll tell you what, I'm here in Virginia. Leaves are changing colors. I'm right outside the DC area. So super blessed to be able to have like a little, farmette out here and be able to be outside in Virginia, God's country. It's awesome. And it's good. And business is cranking. I'll tell you, I talked to a lot of people that are hurting right now and things are still going. And my thing is if you control the inventory, if you control the listings, you control everything. And so, if people are not focused on that piece of their business, what we're talking about today could be a life changer and a game changer for
Yeah, you got to stay on the asset side, right? On the asset class. We don't own these houses, but we can represent them. So, 100% with you there.
you. Absolutely. How about you, man? How's stuff going in your world?
Good, man. We just closed October. We took 24, 25 listings. So in the beginning of the month, we were taking a listing per day up until the 17th of October. So we're cranking. We're doing well, and we made that change just as we spoke about so many times ago. That with the increasing struggle for buyer representation or qualified buyer representation, it makes a lot of sense to stay on the asset side of it, which is representing the homeowner. And one thing that our sales director Harold told me like years ago when he worked REOs and things like that, he was like, houses always sell, whether it's 3 weeks or 3 years, they do sell when the pricing is right. So it's a little bit better to represent that side of things now, and we made that shift in quarter 2 of this year, and it's been doing very well for us since. And obviously, there's a lot of way to monetize listings, but just owning the inventory is really where you should be at right now, or focusing your business for sure.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Listing a day is a good place to be. Of those listings, I'm curious. I'd love to just jump into this with a couple folks or with a couple of thoughts on how to build a business based on these distressed sellers here in just a second. But I am curious, how many, and I know some states don't let you do this, but I think Florida does. And it does up here in Virginia and DC, not as much in Maryland, but we do as a team. So we're allowed to. But how many of those were, kind of distressed sellers that you guys were able to double in and bring a buyer to as well?
Yeah, so here's the funny thing. These listings, our distressed sellers, we typically go for wholesale, Chris. We flip paper. We don't really have the infrastructure you have. I know you're actually taking them down, flipping them, and re-putting them on the market. We're just dispoing them to wholesalers or fix and flippers in the area. And we've been averaging about two a month this year on average for that. So we're not really looking at distressed sellers. We've done a couple like Curbio ones this year, about 4 or 5, where they actually fix them up and then they pay on the back end once it sells. But the reality of it is distressed is a very, I don't want to say loose terms, because it's either the scenario, the individual is distressed, or the home is actually distressed in terms of it being ready to sell, right? Is it even something that is put together? So we have a lot of distressed sellers, that you say, based on scenario, and we're just coming to them trying to solve a problem, right? Presenting them with the cash offer, showing them what it's worth on the market, telling them is even worth it, right? What are the advantages taking a cash offer? No showing, no open houses, no preparation on your home. If you have a medical scenario, can you even prep this home, right? So it's a lot of that when we're talking about distress. It's not only property dependent, it's also scenario dependent on the individual. So we've been converting a lot of them, and to be honest with you, um, Chris, like we're seeing some financial constraints of the American, the general American, and the statistic that also goes along with that is that most of us has 40% equity in our homes, 30 to 40% equity in our homes, so we have cash sitting in our houses. So when these scenarios come up and they qualify themselves as distress, like we're 100% able to take that conversation down and show them how much money we can get them out of their problem, right? So it they're all distressed in some way, shape, or form. I mean, we got people, surprisingly so, leaving Florida for affordability, going to Vermont, going to Alabama, going to Kentucky, going to other places because there's affordability crisis everywhere, and it's pretty relative, right? Just like people are leaving New York and Cali and coming to us and thinking they're saving money, we have people in Florida leaving to go save money as well. So it's all scenario dependent. But yeah, they are typically distressed in some way, shape, or form, as you said.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, if you're cool with it, I just spoke at an event, and I was talking to real estate agents why moving their business towards at least having a pillar of distress asset, like properties and assets, can absolutely grow in a huge business. And basically, what my game plan was to grow mine.
Mm,
If you're cool with taking, like, I'd love to just take like 3 or 4 minutes and just kind of go through a couple of those points and do
yeah.
that. And then I think maybe talk about like what you guys do, what we do to, just grow our business based on that side. Cause I mean, I think I think it's becoming more of a thing, but I think you all and us, like, we're some of the few businesses that have a big organization that has a massive focus on this. So you cool with that?
Mm, yeah, 100%, man.
All right,
100%.
cool. So why should we ever like look at this and say, okay, I want to develop a distressed listing pillar? Well, here's my number one reason. One, the biggest problem with real estate agents is they don't buy their own product, right? Like that is it by far. And if you want to build wealth is when your money works harder than you work. If you want to build wealth,
Mhm.
what you've got to do is own assets, right? Otherwise, when you will go on vacation, your income goes on vacation. When you get sick, your income gets sick. And you need to own assets that work for you even when you're not working. And so that is wealth. And if we lived on Wall Street, if we lived in New York and we were working on Wall Street, you would go to jail if you did what we are allowed to do, which is called insider trading. As a real estate professional, you are allowed to buy products when you see them on sale, when you see a great deal. You can't do that if you have insider knowledge on Wall Street, right? You can't, or you go to jail. So, first of
Right.
all, that is the number one reason, is that you can, and this is my phrase to everybody: buy the best, sell the rest. Buy the best,
Mhm.
sell the rest, right? So that's it. Build your portfolio. And I promise you that, and this, if you're in real estate, and if you don't believe this, get out of this industry because you're in the wrong industry. Real estate is awesome. Nobody's grandfather said, man, I'm glad I sold my house 40 years ago, unless you lived in Detroit, right? Which was crazy because you can't drink the water. Sorry, Detroit people.
Yeah. Mm,
Uh,
mhm. Mhm.
but but that's the whole deal. So why buy real estate? This is why real estate is better than the stock market, right? Cash flow, tax benefits, leverage depreciation, right? Like if you put down 10%, let's just use easy numbers. You put down 10 grand and you buy $100,000 house. it goes up 10%. You've just made 100% cash on cash return. You made 10 grand.
Yep.
If you do that in the stock market, you put down 10 grand, it goes up 10%. You made $1,000, right? You've made 10 times what you make in the stock market because of leverage appreciation, and you get cash flow. And somebody else pays down your mortgage for you. That's why real estate is so much better. So that's my pitch for that. Eric, you have any thoughts on that before we move to the next piece?
Yeah. The brokest people in real estate are the ones selling it. The richest ones are the one buying it. That's my little tidbit there. But 100%, it's it's the vehicle that creates the most millionaires in America, number one, and it's one of the asset classes that are a requirement. I mean, I had this discussion not too long ago talking about general utility, like how we've evolved as a species and things, and like shelter is such an important concept of it, and everything is real estate, from the building I'm in, from the building you in, anything I look outside my window, and it's one of the most important things. So we always need a roof over our heads, and that's what makes it so important, and creates that vehicle of demand as well. And it's a tricky game to play when you're looking at it from a micro perspective, but from a macro perspective, it's a no-brainer every single time. So I'm with you there 100%.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So if you're looking to build a listing-based business, you can call FSBOs, you can call expired listings, and that's totally fine. Like, you can make good money in FSBOs and expired listings.
Yeah.
Totally fine. It's just not my preferred vehicle to go after, because they call it a red ocean or a blue ocean. A red ocean is where like all the chum is and like all the sharks are feeding and it turns red. A blue ocean, it's open pickings, right? And one of the things one of my mentors said is hunt where the ducks are, right? And so why I choose distressed sellers, number one is urgency, right? You know that if they're in distress, there's some urgency there, right? Like, all the people that say, hey, I'm going to sell next year, I'm going to sell later, I'm going to sell later. Hey, if you got a foreclosure coming, you're going to have to sell, right? If you own a property you can't afford, you got to sell. Urgency happens. Number two, you fulfill promises to buyers, right? Like what we promise our buyers is that we'll get off market listings, right? Because if
Yep.
all you offer them,
Yep.
they find on Zillow, then like a trained monkey, I can train my puppy to turn a key.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. It's true. Yeah.
Number three is when you list a beat up property 100 grand under the Zillow price, your phone is going to ring with so many investors that you can fill your potential pipeline with and double in deals.
Yep.
So many buyers that want to buy and live there that couldn't afford the neighborhood if it was at regular retail price. And your open house will be a madhouse. You fill your pipeline. Number four, my favorite, I got three more real quick ones. My favorite Facebook post is this: deal alert. I've got a property in Fairfax County about 100 grand under Zillow's value. Let me know if you or any of your friends are interested in that. I'll tell you, all your friends come out of the woodwork tagging their friends that are looking to buy a house. Favorite Facebook post. I guarantee you, every 3 times you post it, as long as you're posting real deals, you're not going to sell them that deal, but you will get a closed transaction. For me, it's every 3 times I post that there's a closed transaction.
Yep.
Buy it yourself, and then blue ocean. Those are my reasons right there. So if that's not enough to, and then I think we can talk about like tactics and everything else here in a second. But I just want to make my pitch for going after distressed sellers and making that a major pillar of your business.
Yeah, and I mean, I love to add on to that, and going for distressed sellers, or really understanding how to convert cash offers. It's what I really speak about a lot, because that's where you're going to find a lot of distressed people that want that now button, right? That want to click that now button. I think, like, even in conversations, and not to get too in depth into like scripting, like even when you represent yourself as a realtor to some of these people, like most of them say, like, I have a realtor, I need a solution to my financial issue today. Right. So I think part of that conversation is it's 100% true. Like, you're going to get something undervalued that will show a lot of get a lot of attention. I mean, that's how we got a lot of our wholesalers, Chris. It's like we have a whole list of people that we dispo to now for any property we have, even before we take it to the market, right? And that is really driven our ability to double end deals. To be quite honest, to represent that, to get an assignment fee, to collect a whole commission on both sides. So I think, like, to your point, you're 100% right. I mean, there's a tons of advantages on that and in that, and I think, like, you're right. When you do a FISBO or an expired, like, their whole thing was either expired, they avoided, they had a bad experience with an agent. FISBO, they're trying to avoid an agent for whatever reason, right? So I think, like, to your point, and not getting too off tangent, like, we focus on our seller leads coming from cash offers, right? Because the last thing I want to do, and what I hear a lot when I do a lot of call listening, is like, hey, I'm Eric Perez, a real estate agent with the Figaro teams. Hey, I already have a real estate agent. I just want my cash offer to see if you'll buy me out today, right? Because that's something my agent couldn't offer me. So I think the question there is like, well, this is an opportunity to enter a conversation using a different avenue of discovery, right? Because their interest peaks somewhere else. That's not like a home evaluation. That's not like, what marketing we do for listings. It's very, very solution oriented, being that, like, hey, their problem is they want cash for their home. Now go figure out why they don't want to do the normal way. And then you'll start getting all the information on, why are they distressed? Why in the situation? Is it inheritance? That they had some medical issue, whatever the case may be. So yeah, those are great points that you mentioned.
No, absolutely. 100%. And so here's the thing, and it's slightly embarrassing for me, is that we had a new like, this is what I teach like crazy. We had a new person on our team that spoke to a seller, and I just heard the call yesterday. And she was talking about listings. She was talking, like, listing the property, talking about how the offer would be below market value, all this other stuff on the phone. And I literally heard it, and like, on my team, and this is like what I do. And I literally wanted to run my head through a wall, because I
Yeah.
wanted to cry. I couldn't believe it, but we got the appointment. So that was good in spite of everything.
Yeah.
But this is legitimately a big thing. It's like, if you tell a seller that you basically want to list their property, their brother's uncle is an agent, they don't want to talk to you.
Everybody.
Yeah.
It's like, to the point though, and using data, like, people typically work, like, with 65%, like, someone will work with the agent 65% of the time that they meet first, right? So I think for us, it's like, when they do stuff like that, Chris, I'm like, why'd you talk yourself out of an appointment or opportunity of being part of that 65% and getting face to face and developing a relationship with somebody? Like, you'll listen to agents talk themselves out of appointment to try to either overqualify or secure something that's maybe not even there, instead of doing a legitimate discovery. And one of the things that we always say is that, like, we represent investors. It's like, hey, we represent investors in the local area, but my investors won't put an offer on anything till I get eyes on the property. And it's just leave it at that. Like, try to get the appointment to meet with them face to face at the house. And when they do start talking about, oh, dude, they talk about commissions, I get upset. If they talk about our marketing, I get upset. If they talk about it, just I feel like, the point is to not promote yourself as a realtor. The point is to find out what their problem is and promote yourself as a solutions expert in some way, shape, or form. And that's where, like, you're 100% right. When they do over try to qualify a consumer on the phone, especially a seller, I get it for a buyer a little bit, because we do know it's tough to borrow money. So we want to see if they're in their position before we go spend money on gas and tolls and time. Like, I understand that from a realtor perspective, but on a seller, like, they have what you want. It's the asset. Your job's to go out there and get your eyes on it and build a relationship with them. So I think, to your point, you're 100% right. Like, that's, you hit the nail on the head. Like, don't talk yourself out of an appointment, provide your value in other ways. Don't talk about the cash offer. Your job is to get the interior exterior inspection and come back and present them with multiple offers, with multiple pros and cons of each of the solutions that you provide. And I think that's what it really comes down to. And no other agents are doing that. So you instantly differentiate yourself from the market. So, to your point, 100%, try not to talk yourself out of conversations
Oh,
or out of appointments at the very least. At the very
so
least.
painful. So painful. Yeah. So
Yeah.
so here's the whole idea is, I have done so many coaching sessions with agents that have talked to some of these distressed seller leads, and I get this question all the time. Well, how do you get people to meet with you? And here's my whole thing is, if you're having a hard time getting people to meet with you, it means your conversation was the exact opposite of what Eric just said. Because if you are saying the right thing, which is, yeah, I can get you cash offer, you know, who in their right mind is going to say, well, I'm not going to have a meeting with you. Like, I'd like 400,000 in cash, but why don't you just send it in small bills, like cash, to my mailbox, right? Like it doesn't work like that. If you're having a hard time getting a meeting, literally the script is this. Well, that's great. You know, if I were to buy a car for like, you know, even like a $10,000 car, I'd want to see it before I give you the 10 grand. We're talking about something way more than a $10,000 car. You know, I definitely need to get my eyes on it. Okay, that makes sense. All right, sure. When do you want to come over? That's it. That's
Yeah.
it. So if you're having a hard
Yeah.
time, it means your conversation went somewhere other than the idea that you could get them a
Yep.
cap.
Yep. It's 100%. It's 100. We always use I represent several investors, but they will not make an offer till I get eyes on the property. My job is to give them the best, you know, information prior to offer to get you the most accurate offer that we can give for this house. You know, and you're 100% right. Like it's really about getting out there, getting to the property, and you know, we talk about the four pillars a lot: price, condition, motivation, and timeline. The second you get out there, you're going to be able to take over condition, right? They can go through it, through the conversation. Okay, perfect. Saw your house. If I could get you an offer on this, you know, in the next 2 days, what would you want for it? Boom, you get the price expectations. Excellent. If I can get you that price, when would you want to move out? Boom, I get the timeline. Okay, then let me ask finally what piqued your interest in even doing this. Boom, you get motivation. It's just so much easier to get that information in organic conversation in person. So it's just like do whatever you need to get the appointment and figure out the rest going forward. And sometimes, Chris, like even when you present like the commercial cash offers, which I call, which are like the open door, the offer pad, Zoodealio type of stuff, and even your local wholesaler. Like when you present those offers on behalf of them, sometimes they need to take it to the market on a traditional side of it because the income doesn't match on what they need to get out of it. But you need to allow the people to self discover that opportunity as well, right? You can't push it to that because you really don't know what they need. So to your point, your agent that's on the phone qualifying them on listing, how do you know that's what they need? You don't have no idea that's what they need. You're just pushing your agenda on them, and that's not what we do. We're into service, you know, high quality service. So,
Yeah,
yep, that's a good
absolutely.
point.
Absolutely.
Yep,
So you keep talking about the wholesale side. So let's talk
yep,
about, um, and you've used the word disposition or dispo. So for those that are not familiar with this world, the you know for those that like do wholesaling, there's acquisitions, which is finding the property. There's dispositions, which is getting rid of or selling the property to an interested
selling it.
buyer.
Yeah,
And so let's talk about the disposition side. One, where do we find buyers? And this is, you know, whether you're wholesaling, whether you're listing, whether you're whatever it is, if you can connect two people, the people that make the most money are the ones that solve the most problems. So if you can connect two
yep,
people, a seller and a buyer, you can make money in the connection there, whether you take it as a commission or take it as a wholesale fee or a novation fee or a
yep,
creative finance fee or
yep,
whatever it is that you do.
yep.
So where let's talk about where we find these people, and then let's talk about how we can structure some of these deals. So Eric, do you want to share some of the ways that you find people?
Yeah. So honestly, we you know, and I'm in Florida, so I don't know how it is for you, Chris, but like we get calls from wholesalers on our own listings all the time, just lowballing us. And what we did some time ago is we took our MLS number and we ported it into our CRM. So we actually get all the call data from people that are calling in our listings. So what we did, and then we just tagged them as investor, wholesaler, X, Y, and Z. Then we have the data to market directly to them whenever we have an opportunity. You know, and the reality of it is, it's like 80% of them, as you know, Chris, aren't going to pull the trigger on
Yeah.
stuff, but you find that 20% marketing place, and then once you do get that first deal with the individual, then it becomes a lot easier and the trust factor goes higher. But that's what we did. We just ported the number, And every time they come in, I have it managed. Like, oh, that was an investor wanting to the wholesaler, like this, that, cool. Mark them down. Do you have buy box criteria? Excellent. Let me write what you like. Okay, boom, boom. Now I have my own dispo database. When I do get something under contract on the wholesale side, I literally just blast an email and even have the agent start calling that list. And that's really what it is. That's how simple we did it. Because we didn't know. So for a long time, we represented Zillow in the iBuyer space, Chris. So we had Zillow as our buyer during the Zillow offers days. Then when that went away, we're like, we don't have this behemoth, so we have to figure something out. Because we focus on listing so much, we started seeing that wholesalers were calling for houses under 400 grand, like offering us like, you know, 350, 340, 320. And we're like, okay, what are you doing? And then we just started being like, okay, well, let's collect this information. What's your buy box is the question we asked them. What are you looking for? Right. So then we started putting that together. Now we have a database of probably 110, 150 wholesalers now over the last 2.5 years or so that want to buy properties. And now we're using them way more than we did 2 years ago, to be quite honest with you. But that's how we did it. That's how we found them.
Yeah.
It's not super complicated, but it is what it is.
So what would you do if you were starting fresh? Let's say you're a solo agent and you're trying to figure this out. Well, one, if you're a solo agent building a team, I get that. If you're a solo agent on your own, man, it's going to just get harder and harder right now.
Yeah, that's I
that's
would say join a team. If you're a solo agent, join a team is my first quick thing, because it's just going to get tighter. That's a really good question, because I never, from my background, I never lived on the solo agent side. Chris, you know better than me. You built your business from scratch. So I kind of came in to help Veronica run hers. So we kind of done things at a little bit different of a level, or I had the opportunity to do things at a little different of a level. We already had infrastructure and stuff. But I think the question is like, the reality of it is, a, they're in your own network as realtors as well, right? Somebody in your network knows them. And I think it's about you being more like a mindset, being open to the concept that you're going to represent and be a wholesaler and find these people. Because once you find the deal, as you always say, the money will come. So the reality of it is that, like, once you do get it locked down, you can literally go to your Facebook groups if you're active enough, and you can just say, I have a deal. I have a deal. I mean, Grid, I worked in this, or presented for this Grid network with 15,000 people in the Facebook group nationally that are buying all over the country. You get the deal, put the criteria, display it on Facebook. You're going to get people hitting you up. Now, you will have to filter through the BS, as we all know, right? Because sometimes the people that saying they're buying, they're just trying to daisy chain that deal to another wholesaler, and it might get too skinny for anybody to make money. But you're going to have to put yourself out there and market it, just like anything else. You don't have an MLS to do it, so you're going to have to get creative. So I would say use Facebook, use any of the network and marketplaces, go to a local RIA in your area, a real estate investment group, find people that are buying. Like, there's 1,000 ways to do it on the network side of it. You just have to go out there and put yourself out there, truly, to find the people that want to buy. But that's what it takes. Takes some legwork, to be honest with you. It takes some work. It's not going to be like, and every market has different people that do it. That's the one thing that I always tell people too. Like, we use the commercial iBuyers like Open Door and OfferPad, because they're always going to submit an offer in some of the areas that we have. But there is going to be specific areas that don't have it, and you're going to have to find a very niche, the secondary market investor that knows, Bartow, Florida. You know what I mean? Like, Open Door's not buying there. But the only way to do that is put yourself out to go to local real estate investment groups, do those things, meet those people, be open. I'm a realtor. I'm running into distressed properties. I want to know who buys them. I want to learn how to wholesale. I want to get into that. You have people raise your hand left and right saying, hey, we buy, and just go from there, collect the information and work the deals, find some deals.
Right. No, that's absolutely huge. Yeah. So here's a couple other tools that I always offer up to people. Go to local auctions and check out local auctions, because people that buy at auctions, you think there's really sweet deals on the courthouse steps. There's not. There's really not. People that are buying at thin margins of houses that they've not seen the inside of. Right.
Yep.
So when you can offer a deal with a little bit of a juicier spread and say, hey, you can also get inside, or here's pictures of the inside, like, 30, 50 pictures. And this is, a friend of mine, Robert Winsley, who owns a company called Investor Lift.
Oh, I've heard of them. They're great. That's a great software or a great program.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, super cool. I think they just got valued at like $200 million. So good for him, man. I
Yep.
remember seeing him when he was first starting and like in this investor space. It's awesome. But yeah, he's a good dude. And he said that he just saw some studies done, and they've seen with Investor Lift that if you have more pictures, that you're going to get a better offer from investors. So the ones that have 5 or 10 pictures, the offer is never as good, like margin wise, as the ones that have 36, 40 pictures and a video walkthrough. So just know that that's huge. And most real estate agents don't realize, because we're used to listing presentations, we don't realize that when we go over to the house, it's totally okay to say, hey, would you mind if I take some pictures? These are not the pictures you're putting on the MLS, right? You're just grabbing your iPhone and if you're an Android, go burn it and get an iPhone. Stop ruining my text with your green text. But I'll tell you, my brother and I have words about that every day.
Me too. My brother too. Yeah.
He ruins our family group chats. Videos come through great for him, but terrible for us because he's stupid.
Terrible for us, yeah.
But
it's funny.
Anyway, yeah, you just grab your phone and literally take pictures everywhere, do walkthroughs. And here's the other one. If there are things that are a mess, take pictures of those. If there's water damage, take pictures. Don't try to hide it from potential investors, because then when they see it, it's shocker. If they see it up front, then they're going to take into account and still move forward or not move forward on it. And like that's one of the new investor big mistakes, is they think that if they show water damage somewhere that it's going to be a deal killer. Well, if you don't show it, then not only is it a deal killer, but it's also a relationship killer, because they feel like you either didn't see it and they can't trust you, or you did see it and you didn't tell them, and then they really can't trust you. And one thing you never want to be accused of is not being a person of integrity or not being a person that's good at their job. And either one of them will get you caught.
Yep. That's why, honestly, when I do the training, Chris, I use the open door and offer pad method, because they require you to submit pictures and videos in order to get that like real cash offer, because they want that initial inspection, then they'll go send their people out there as well. That's every investor. The last wholesale deal we just secured, Chris, they had 3 inspections in 15 days. They had a structural guy go out there. They had a septic guy to go out there, and they had 3 people. The guy who bought it walked it. Then he brought 2 inspectors as well. They're going to do that work. And then we had to come back. We had to come down lower and go to the seller like, hey, we need an extra 11 grand on this deal because of X, Y, and Z. Right. So to that point, you're 100% right. Like, it's not listing photos. It's literally interior exterior inspection. You can tell that to the seller and be like, hey, I got to send these over to my investors so they give us that initial offer, right? To see if this is even worth going down there. So when I trained, and the reason why I like to do that, and I learned this from Zillow, Chris, is that like, we're not coming up with additional like steps. We're like, hey, number one, every home we take goes through offer pad and open door as long as it's in the buy box. These are their requirements. Well, their requirements happen to be exactly what every investor wants to do, because they are like relatively just large investor groups, right? So I think like from that point of view, and it makes a lot of sense that you don't look like you're coming up with the operational structure out of your mind. Like, this is how I want it done. It's like, hey, these are the requirements for us to do business this way. And if they need it, so do the other local investors need it as well. So to your point, 100%. You should not, one of my, like, it happened the other day, and I don't know like why. I was like, hey, can you send me some pictures of the property? And they sent me some of like, they were hiding, like they were trying to do it without the seller knowing. Like, why don't you just be open about it? Like, just be very open. Like, hey, we don't buy things unless we have these videos and pictures submitted. So just be open about it. I was like, hey, that wasn't the best photo. It's kind of hard to see, the structure and framework. So just be very open about it, and even talk about that on your initial conversation. They have to come and do the inspection and take some photos and videos, because that makes it a lot easier. I mean, even Investor Lip, it's almost like that investor MLS is what I call it. Like, it's beautiful because you see all the distress shit. You see everything associated with it in terms of what it is, because it's more of a numerical value for an investor than it is an emotional value for a buyer, right? When it's said and done. So they just really want to see the like what it's worth from a fundamental approach, which is a lot of the basics of a house, foundation, structural, is there water damage, is there mold, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, always do that.
Yeah,
Always do that.
absolutely. Um, here's the other question. So like if an agent doesn't want to do any sort, like doesn't want to do wholesale stuff, maybe they don't understand the mechanics of it, maybe they don't like it, any of the other stuff, what are some other options there? And I think that's something we should talk about here. If you want to stay traditional, like, do you only list at 6% or only list at 3% or only list at 9%, whatever it is, like how do you stay traditional? What are some thoughts that you have for like your agents that come across these deals?
Well, if you are very concerned, and I just keep beating a dead horse, like use the big guys like OfferPad and Open Door because they'll pay your commission for you. So you're really making a hard introduction, and you can kind of stay in your space. You don't even have to talk about wholesaling. You're not even really writing the contract like you are, but it's very standard as is contract that they use. For us, it's the FAR bar contract for Open Door and OfferPad. I would say just leverage those opportunities. I think though, Chris, it's like when I have the conversation, and this is not exactly answering your questions, but so when I have the conversation with my team, like if I raise accountability or activity requirements, it's like, guys, I'm not making the rules. This is what the market is dictating. I'm not the one saying you should be doing 250 to 350 calls per week to keep your pipeline filled because there's less qualified people out there. The market is doing that, right? So at the same time, it's like, well, I don't want to do wholesaling. Well, what happens? We're in the middle because before it ever goes to an REO, before it ever goes to some sort of bank-owned market, if it continues to slip, there's going to be a heavy investor market in terms of buyers. You're telling me that because you don't want to learn or be uncomfortable, there's going to be a point in time where you don't want to sell real estate anymore, right? Or you're just going to shoot your income down another 30-40% year over year because you don't want to play in this space. I'm not telling you need to do it. The market is dictating that approach. So I'm not here to have a lot of friction in this space, like in that conversation. We run a business. We run businesses, Chris. And the point of having a business is to stay in business, right? So I think hypothetically speaking, if you're uncomfortable in that space, go Open Door and OfferPad and see if they'll acquire it. But when they don't, trust me, an investor will come in and take that deal from you, and it's because you're resistant to the educational portion of this industry, in general, because there's so much to learn. So I think that's one thing. That's what I'd say. Go with the big portals that are buying. Open Door, OfferPad, Zudelio has some ones. There's other big, and especially in Florida, there's a bunch of like real estate investment trusts that are buying single family and multifamily in Florida all the time. So there's a bunch there. I'm sure they're all over the country as well. But that'd be my recommendation: is stop being scared and learn, because this industry is very vast, and as things change that are out of our control, you're gonna have to pivot your selling proposition to stay employed. Is really what I would say.
Yeah, that's it. And here's some crazy stuff. We sold a property at Open Door, and we charged 19% commission, right?
Yep.
And that was it, right? And that was totally fine. It was a 565 property, and you do the math on 19% of 565. That's a good
Yeah.
commission. And the seller was completely aware of it, was completely okay
Yeah.
with it, right?
Yeah.
That's the whole thing. And somebody may say, "Oh, you can't do that. That's a net list." It's not a net listing. A net listing is they keep this much and we keep anything above that. What's the difference? And I remember a mentor of mine said this to me. They're like, "What's the difference between 1%, 6%, and 19%? There's not a difference. It's all a percent, right? 99%, right? It's all a
Yeah.
percent. You can't keep 100%. That's a net listing.
Right.
So anyway,
Yep.
you got to realize and let me say this. So a lot of people may be listening, you may be listening to this right now and just saying, no, sellers want the most money for the property. Let me push back for a second. Here's the deal. You are putting your values on them, right? The golden rule, do unto others what you'd want done unto you. The platinum rule, do unto others as they would want done to them, right? You know what? if I'm selling my house, I want the most money for my house. When I'm trading in my car, you know, I tell the story all the time, right? I was looking for a Ford Raptor that was black and had the orange piping on the leather, right? That's what I wanted. It was right after COVID, and that's what I wanted. If I bought it new, it was going to take me almost a year for them to like actually get it to me. So finally, I found one at a dealership that had everything I wanted, right? And so I drove an hour and a half to that dealership when it came in, and I got it. And I could have traded it. I could have sold my car on Craigslist. I would have made $2,500 more or $5,000 more. I would have made more money if I would have sold it on Craigslist. But I was like, dang, I'm going to trade this in because I don't want the hassle of that. I'd rather take less money for convenience, right? Well,
Correct.
the same thing is true with this, right? Sellers will oftentimes rather take less money for convenience and for certainty. That's one of the Jordan Belfort sale. Like, I love teaching sales, right? Jordan Belfort
Right.
says that, like, which, you know, you may not agree with him on how he does life, but he's a darn good salesperson, the Wolf of Wall Street,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, for sure.
Certainty sells, right? If you can give people certainty, they're willing to take less money. That's why people take cash for less money than they take financed offers. So anyway.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. You have to do a good job when you get out there to find the 4 pillars of motivation. Because some people, you know, and it's vice versa. Some people want convenience, but they actually can't afford it because they need a net 40, 50 grand, you know, so they, or whatever the number is. And so they need to take it to the traditional market. So I think that's why finding the motivation and building a relationship is so important. To your point, Chris, like a lot of people will take the convenience in this factor, especially during COVID. I mean, we had a elderly couple, their house is worth 1.2 million. They're willing to sell it for 900 grand cash because they just wanted out and downsizing. Like $300,000 spread, not even talking about commissions almost. Like, you know, the opportunities are there, you know, because they were elderly, they don't want to get like these scenarios are so real, but it's real life. Like they're people, you know, they're people. And I think a lot of times, like you said, realtors put people in a box of this are the services we provide and that's it. Can't. You got to be multi-service. We don't own these products, guys. We're service providers. The one who provides the most services will get the most sales because they have a box for everybody, you know. So
You know,
yeah.
we can transition here in just one second, but what I want to throw out there is I started the how to find buyers if you're a solo agent. So one is throw the deal out there, right? Or
Yeah.
go to the auctions and throw it out there and just say, hey, I got a deal. Everybody give me your name and number. And here's what I teach is that you should go to each auction in each county that you service 2 times because you're going to see different people at each one.
Yeah.
And if it's raining out, go back another time. There's always going to be a handful of people there, but definitely go back again. So that's one easy way. Number 2 is I'm a big fan of listing properties as low as possible. Like my own properties, I always, like any property I flip, I put on the market way low. And here's my strategy. I put it on a Wednesday. I do 2 open houses, one on Saturday, one on Sunday. And then we don't accept offers. We have an offer deadline on Monday.
Till Monday, right? Yep.
And then on Monday,
that's the best.
On Monday, I take every single offer that's in. I don't negotiate one bit until Monday morning. And then Monday morning, we call each person back and say, hey, we've got 7 other offers. We got 14 other offers. You know, we're asking everybody for a highest and best, and we're not accepting an escalation addendum, right? And then people will push back and say, oh, you know, my highest and best includes an escalation addendum. Well, we're not accepting that. So if it has an escalation addendum, whatever the offer is, that's the price that we're going to present to the seller. Okay, cool. Yep. So then it comes back again. And then I take the top 3 and we do something called a ticking clock. And we say to the top 3, hey, you're in the top 3. They're all fairly good offers. We just wanted to let you know that we are going to be accepting an offer within the next 60 minutes. You see any movie, they always have a ticking clock because when emotion goes up, intellect goes down, right? We want them to get emotional about this. and we say,
Mm-hmm.
we're going to be accepting an offer within the next 60 minutes. Go ahead and, if you want to make any changes, let me know. But you are in the top 3, but there's a couple other really good offers. And then you come back, and then if you have any final changes to that, then you come back and counter with them. But you never want to be the one to counter until that last bit,
Yep.
because when they negotiate against themselves, that's when you win.
100%. Have you listened to that software Final Offer? They're actually out of your area.
Yeah, I have seen it. I'm curious. Here my take on Final Offer is that it gives complete transparency, and I feel like that's great for lower level agents, but really bad for like more skilled negotiators. But I'm curious, what do you think about that?
I think it's interesting. I think it depends on the amount of users in your area. I think in your area it's saturated. It started there in out of the DC area. So I think like we don't have a lot of users. I just found out about it. I think for me, it's a way for us to list our wholesale opportunities. Is what I was thinking. It's a very like simple way to do it as well, and you can see where it's at. But I think the push notifications on terms of when offers are starting to get submitted is a little bit. It's cool. It builds that FOMO, that emotional thing that you're talking about. But especially with your strategy where you're underpricing it, like I think it's smart to use in your case. I think it could be a good tool, but I would give it a try. I mean, it's definitely an interesting concept, without getting too off
But isn't
track.
there
Um,
transparency with Final Offer? Like, can't they see what the other offers are?
only yes, only if it's above the threshold you set. So if you set your minimum threshold 360, it will only show offers that are like 365 and higher. Anything below it is like doesn't show. So there's a little bit of manipulation there, but yeah, that's kind of how it works. And I think another thing of it is kind of interesting is where you also set terms on the platform, like wave appraisal or contingency or wave inspection. You get it for a 5K discount. Like do this, do that. Like the more layers you put to protect the buyer, the higher the price will go. So it's kind of like it's definitely interesting. I would say I think during COVID, this thing would have been insane. It would have got sellers even more, for the high competitiveness. I think right now, because there's not that many buyers, it's really about the area you're using it in, because the demo that I saw was in the DC area. Well, DC homes don't sit, suburb homes don't sit for too long anyway. You don't need a platform for that. And depends on the areas where you're at. But I do think it could make sense for some use cases for sure. I think
Yeah.
everything does at some point. So we haven't bought into it, but I just saw the demo not too long ago. I was just wondering, kind of, when your tactic you said it makes a lot of sense. Do it on Wednesday, double open houses, get more traction to it, underprice the home, get more traction to it. If you were to add that offer submission with an underpriced home as well, I'm sure you would get a lot of it. And what I liked most about it, Chris, was I'm more big into recruiting where we're at, it captures the agent data for the user as well, like everything from the brokerage, their number, their email. Like I have all their agent data as well as they're submitting offers. So I like to collect data at scale, as you know. So to me, that was the one thing that piqued my interest. Like, okay, cool. I put a hot listing out there. If I get 15, 20 agents that have active buyers, well, what would it look like if I can get them on my team? How do I start that conversation? So to me, I did like that point of it as well.
Yeah. No, it makes sense. Makes complete sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll tell you um that's interesting. Yeah. I mean, collecting agent data is huge there. So yeah, that's interesting. Um
Yeah.
cool. So what else are you guys looking at when it comes to this? So you guys have a wholesaling component in this space. Obviously when people call in, a lot of time, like, I mean, we just got somebody that called in that, uh, their house is worth 600. They wanted 700 for it because their neighbor, about, 8 miles away got 700 for a house, and, all of that. So how are you guys handling, the sifting process of the people that want to cash offer versus the great ones?
Yeah, it's not easy, like you said, because people always have some, it's that's the hardest part when you actually present what the home is worth and what the offers are. They're like, "What do you mean?" Like 100%. Like, what is it? We don't really uh sift through. We try to educate on the dynamics of the market. And we try to give it tons of value and educate how things can change quickly, how things have changed quickly, how they continue to change, and that timing the market is never a good idea. It always comes down to what was the problem they had, Chris, the reason why we're even conversating in the first place, right? And then just keep bringing that up to light. Bring that to top. Like, remember why we're doing this. Remember why we're doing this, because as an investor and in all investors, you don't buy houses, you buy scenarios, as you know, right? So I think the some point of that is like we're always bringing that up, and sometimes, like I said, like we took 24, 25 listings this month. I have to check. Those are people where the decision, the best thing for them was to go to the market, right? So I'm going to tell you right now, like those people have scenarios where they need the most money for the house possible. So I think if you just stay on the solution side of it and get the motivation, you don't have to do too much sifting. You have to do more educating. And I think that's what's more important, personally.
Are you able to tell us, of the 24, 25 listings that you guys took last month, how many of them are more of the, sellers that wanted cash offers and how many are standard sales? Like, how does that
I'll tell
break?
you right now. I'll pull it up to you right now. One, two. Okay, so I'll just do this at money.com board. We have 16 listings coming soon, and one, two, three, four, five, six, seven out of the 16 came through cash offer inquiries.
Okay.
Yep, yep. And as for listed right now, one, two. We have a lot. We have like literally almost 40 active listings right now. So I'd have to count a little bit longer, but I would say anywhere from 40%, 30 to 40% of them are from cash offer increase as well.
Right.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Cool. And you usually do about two off market, like wholesale deals a month, and then you do these as well.
Yeah. So that's exactly. So we always present that. To be honest with you, Chris, like listening to you speak makes me think like, man, we should put one of these distressed properties on the market anyway, just to see but we already have enough of the investor demand to where we just do it off market more or less. Uh, but you got me turning my wheels and thinking a little bit if we can do a different strategy. But what I
So
would say is, yeah,
I will say this, like selling off market. Now, one of the things as a business owner, you always think about like the cash cycle, the velocity of cash, how fast can you turn cash around? And
yep,
it's good to
yep,
take a little bit of a discount. But man, I have just found that it is super rare that when if I put one of these properties on the MLS, that I'll usually make, probably somewhere between, well, it's usually somewhere between 7 and 15% more than if I sell off market. Now, not always. Every once in a while, I know the buyer's need or desire, and I'm like, this is perfect for you. But
yep.
man, there's so like you just can't compete with 6 million eyeballs that you get on the MLS.
Yeah, I mean, you're 100% right to that point. And you maybe think about it a little differently, but one of the things that um, you do probably make more money, but we save money on the cost of labor. We save money on photos, not doing photos, sign like things that we have to pay for. And one of the things that we've moved to is that we became a partner with the Showcase Plus for all of our listings, which is like that program that Zillow offered. And we buy a certain amount of credits per month. So to us, we have to look at it like, is it worth spending a credit on this property when I know this guy's going to buy it in 15 days and I can just save all that time in between. And also typically when we're doing the wholesales, Chris, it's because we need to secure the need of the consumer as fast as possible. They're either paying 2 mortgages, or they've already moved out of the house, or they're, there's life scenarios that are waiting on this money. So I think for us, like, I wrote on the note, list a distressed property in November. That was what I got out of this, right? Like, list a distressed property in November, just to see what the hell happens at the end of the day. But to your point, like, we've always been on the way, like, hey, let's make this as fast, as smooth as possible, and let's get going.
Here's here's my game plan. If you list the distressed property, because the seller, if they see it, let's just say that you locked a property up for 300 grand, right? And they see that you're listing it for 400 grand, they get super pissed. But if you lock it up for 300 grand and you list it for 315, even though you had a wholesale offer at like 335 or 350, you list it at 315, and you go from Wednesday until Monday, you end up getting, like, let's say you would have gotten 350, you end up getting 375, 400, whatever it is, like way more. But the seller doesn't know that you're that difference there. But I have a lot of friends and a lot of coaching students that I've had that have put the number up at close to what they think it would sell for well. And there's just so much blowback. And so I'm just like, no. When you list low, you get so many buyers, you get the best open houses. And a lot of times the sellers don't like open houses. So this is one of the ways that we get them good with open houses, is offer, hey, I'm gonna give you $100 on Saturday, go to a movie, go to your favorite restaurant, just go do what you're gonna do.
Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah, I think, like, we don't list distressed properties, so that's good that you put it there. But I also think too, like, to the point where I think there is income earning opportunities in every scenario as a realtor, right, and working in real estate. And I still like to promote, like, the service side of it to our consumer, right? It's like, if you got something for, like, exactly 300 grand, and you're going to dispo it, and you can sell it very fast for 315 to 330, right? And the money's there, and everybody gets paid. I can pay the agent a finder's fee. The company gets paid. Everybody gets paid in the process. Like, that's great. I do think if you're looking for 300 to 400K, right, that's a little bit egregious. And at some point, you weren't representing your consumer at the best, in the best light of service, right? So, when it's all said and done, I think because we've taken 12% listings before, like you said, 16% listings. I mean, we've even done net listings before. I'm not someone over here that's saying, like, this and that. I mean, the seller was cool with it. You know what I mean? If the scenario, the seller's cool with it. But I do think, like, locking a property down for 300 grand and then the seller to see it at 400 on Zillow, the blowback has to be unreal for 100 grand difference, right? So, and I don't think that's the best customer service, to be quite honest with you, right? So, I think it depends, but we're more on, like, representing people because we get more business, referral business. Like, we give them a good experience. We're able to grow our network, our sphere of influence, and attract and get more market share, when it's all said and done.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah. But all right, dude. Well, it's past 2 p.m. Killed it for an hour. You crushed it, bro. Thank you. I got 3 notes and I have a goal for November. So that's good, and I hope you got something out of this too. And I hope everybody listening and watching got something out of it for sure. And, we're here to help if anybody needs anything.
It's awesome. Thanks, brother. This is always awesome. I love hanging with you. And if anybody wants to reach out, if anybody ever wants to reach out, at Craddock, CRADDROCK. All right, cheesy high school nickname, which I need to change. Feel free to reach out. Happy to help. My podcast, I talk about this periodically, Uncommon Real Estate. So feel free to jump on and check out some of the stuff about distressed listings. And anything I can do to help, happy to do it.
Excellent, brother. Well, Chris, I always learn from you. I appreciate your time, and hit me up. Keep in touch.
Boom. See you guys.